Ellen Rooney is an illustrator, designer, and artist from the state of Massachusetts, currently living in British Columbia. She's the illustrator of her Fearless Run, Desk Explorers, Grandmother School, and other books for children. And Sharon Mentyka is the author of Think Smart, Be Fearless, a biography of Bill Gates. Her middle grade novel, Chasing at the Surface, was named the 2016 Children's Winner of the National Outdoor Book Award. And of course, the book of the hour, Heart of the Storm, is a picture book biography of accomplished and celebrated basketball player and activist Sue Bird, following her journey from an energetic yet shy young girl to one of the most versatile and inspirational athletes of our time, and a leader whose legacy extends off the court. So obviously, we are thrilled to have Sharon and Ellen here in conversation today. I'm going to let them get started, and I will be back in a bit for Q&A. So have a great time, ladies.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone at RJ Julia. You've been great to work with so far organizing this event. And I think your bookstore is just such a great resource for readers in your area, and they're really lucky to have you. So I'm Sharon. As Abby said, I'm a children's writer and a graphic designer, and I'm actually originally from the East Coast, from New Jersey, but I've been living now for many years in Seattle. And The Heart of the Storm is our book. There it is. It's my fourth book, and it's my second nonfiction biography for kids. And our publisher is Sasquatch Books, which is an independent imprint of Penguin Random House. And The Heart of the Storm is part of their Growing to Greatness series, which is picture book biographies of featuring nationally recognized figures, mainly from the Pacific Northwest, who've made significant contributions to culture through their work in sciences, arts, or sports. And I feel really lucky to have had the opportunity to work with Sasquatch, because they're really open to authors' ideas. And in fact, my first book, Think Smart, Be Fearless, which is the biography of Bill Gates, was a manuscript that I proposed and they accepted. So that was huge for me. And from then on, it's been a real collaboration. So Abby, could you bring up that first combo slide that we had of Sue for the screen? So The Heart of the Storm, the book follows Sue's journey right from the beginning, right from her childhood, where she's, full of energy and determination, to her emergence as one of the most versatile athletes of all time and a real inspirational leader on and off the court. And it's also, I think, a love letter to Seattle, because it's the city where she lives and where she has spent her entire career. And she's so beloved here in the Pacific Northwest, as I know that she is in her hometown region of New York and Long Island, and also there in Connecticut because of her Yukon roots. So we were so excited when she committed to playing one more season here in Seattle. So this is just a wonderful time that Sasquatch has released this book. So Ellen, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Oh, sure. I just wanted to say hi to everybody. It's really nice to have a chance, even from, we're both out in the Pacific time zone here. I'm in Western Canada. And, but as Abby said, I'm from Massachusetts. So it's nice to have a chance to do this kind of coast to coast collaboration, and to be able to bring our book to Connecticut, where I know that Sue's had major fan base, especially when she was playing for Yukon. And it's just nice to really, thanks RJ Julia, and it's great to be able to kind of come together, even virtually, with other people who love books and just are interested in books and authors and illustrators. And that's really all I really wanted to say. To Sharon, we're going to start off with a little bit of reading of a section of the book. It's kind of a long one. So we just decided we just do a highlight the Yukon years, and I'll let Sharon take it away.
Okay. With her talent for seeing every detail and thinking quickly on her feet, Sue earned the starting point guard position at Yukon. It was a huge responsibility for a freshman, and expectations were high. Sue inched her way onto the team, tense and cautious, making more turnovers than assists. Then, one stormy December night, everything changed. During an ordinary practice, on an ordinary jumper she'd made thousands of times before, she was running down the court, dribbling, eyeing her shot, when something in her left knee seemed to pop. Suddenly, her leg gave out and she crumbled to the floor. The pain was unbearable. Her doctors delivered the bad news. The torn ligament in her knee would need surgery. She'd only played 8 games for the Huskies. Just like that, her first year of college basketball was over. Now Sue faced a choice. She could feel sorry for herself, mope and moan about being on the sidelines, or she could look inside her heart. Maybe this was a chance to turn a bad experience into a positive one. As a little girl, Sue had discovered the power of paying attention. Now she decided to use her time on the bench to study the beautiful game of basketball like never before. In the next 6 months, Sue learned more than she could ever have imagined, just by watching and listening. The following season, with Sue back on the court, the Huskies came roaring back to win the NCAA championship. But they didn't stop there. Since their freshman year, Sue and her teammates had set their sights on playing in the WNBA after graduation. To prove they could do it, they took on a challenging goal, one that sometimes seemed unthinkable when the players were injured or exhausted. They wanted to go a whole season without losing even one game. For the next 2 years, the women kept a laser focus. They practiced against the men's team to get better and stronger. They trusted their coach's vision, even when things seemed grim. Private, shy Sue was now a vocal leader. She learned as much as she could about her teammates, their birthdays and favorite foods, when to push them to work harder, when to give them a hug, all with the goal of motivating them to win. Each had arrived at this special place in a different way. Now they were united, working towards a single goal. It worked. The Huskies ended Sue's senior year setting a new school record, a perfect 39-0 season, with Sue named College Player of the Year. The end of the 2002 college season had arrived. Time for the WNBA to select new players from the talent pool. When Sue's name was called as the #1 overall draft pick by the Seattle Storm, her first thought was all her hard work had paid off. Her second thought, Seattle? Where was that exactly? Awfully far from New York. But that was okay. Sue was ready for a new adventure.
All right, we can minimize the slides for a little bit, Abby, thanks. Yay, Sharon. I feel like I need to fill a little bit of time to give you a chance to catch your breath.
Oh, that's fine.
Get a drink of water. Well, anyway, we're going to have a little chat. And I was wanting to start off just asking you, start kind of at the beginning. How did you come up with the idea of doing a biography for kids of Sue?
Well, that story really is kind of like the classic writer's dream, because my editor for Think Smart, which was the biography of Bill Gates, had invited me to lunch, and she just wanted to talk about other potential topics for other kids' biographies that I might be interested in working on. So she brought her list and I brought mine, and Sue Bird was on both of our lists. So it was very easy. Her story is just such a natural for the Growing to Greatness series, I mean, for her athletic accomplishments, but we were also really excited because there was no children's illustrated picture book of Sue on the market. So writing it for me, it was important that I really wanted to make it relevant for kids today. why is this person's life matter? You know, what does it mean for kids now? What changed in the world because of this person? And for Sue, that was so easy, because what interested me in her story was, of course, what she achieved, but also how she achieved it. She's just not the kind of a person that tears people down to get to the top, but she builds her teammates up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And that's one of the things I really loved about her, is that she's at the same time as being like really competitive and really like having that focus on winning, she's also not like a winner takes all kind of person. She's about building other people up, so that I like that she shows that you can be both those things, So I know for me there was a lot of research involved. I can't imagine for you, like we were talking about earlier how it's hard to work on you're trying to write a biography. It's almost like it keeps going while you're trying to write it. She's
for a living person. Yes.
Yeah, she's still she still has a career. It's ongoing. So like, how long does it take you to do this? And was it like full, years of research or?
Well, the thing about kids' biographies is that it's the story of the person's life, but then they're meant for kids to read on their own, but then also to read themselves once they can start to read. And then in the early grades, they could begin to do research. So the back matter in this book, there's a lot of back matter. There's a timeline of Sue's life. There's a timeline that weaves with basketball history in the United States. And so teachers can really use it with the kids. So that meant that, yes, it's like a 2,000 word narrative, but there's a lot of work to do for the back matter and the research, and it all has to be accurate and obviously, footnoted and kept. So I started on it in, I think, 2018, right after the Storm had won their third WNBA championship. And there aren't any adult biographies of Sue yet. So all of my research was periodicals, college career videos, interviews with Sue, newspapers, short documentaries, things like that. And of course, the most fun part was actually going to the games and watching her play, because that really helped me describe in words how she runs games. But what your question about, we knew that there was a chance that the Storm was going to win another championship, and we were getting closer and closer to publication. And then there was also the Olympics. So we really needed to kind of hold it off and continue to make edits right until the end.
It's hard to know when to stop.
Yes, exactly.
We talked a little bit about like the kind of person that Sue is, and that we one of the things we find inspiring about her. But is there like any core takeaway that you want readers to have from this? Or?
Well, I mean, athletically, she was just one of those kids that was like really super active right from the beginning. And she had a remarkable memory, which scientifically is called situational awareness. Like, she was always aware of where she was in space. So of course, for a basketball player, that's huge, because she needs to be able to, imagine the player's moves on the court. But personal qualities, she's a super hard worker, and she's tenacious. She doesn't give up. She's competitive, but she also believes, I think, that if you just work hard at something, you're going to get better. It's just simple. So for kids, that's a great lesson, to hear and to see in action. But what struck me also in all my research was that she can be strong, but that doesn't mean that you can't be kind. And that is also like a great takeaway, and especially for ambitious girls who want to succeed in a lot of male dominated fields.
So speaking of girls, do you see this as being like a book for girls or a book for girls who are interested in sports, or is it just
Well,
a book for all kids?
yeah, I mean, hopefully no, it is not, because if this was a book about a male basketball player, it would certainly not, no one would ask that question, like, is this just a book for boys? But, everyone, I think, in publishing and these days really acknowledges that it's important for every child to see role models of their own race, of their own gender in books that they read so that they can be inspired. And, gender role stereotypes are still strong for girls in fields dominated by boys and men, especially sports. Sue herself, she has said that growing up in the 80s, there were no professional female athletes that she really could look up to as a role model. So I think now that really makes a big impression on her, that she is a role model. Of course, for girls, young girls and collegiate players, but I think she wants boys and girls to see women as strong, confident athletes. And there's studies on this. I mean, there's studies that found that girls who participate in sports have a higher level of confidence and self-esteem and lower levels of depression, more positive body image. The point is not winning, the point is participation. Mm-hmm. So maybe this book does contribute to that goal. Maybe there are some young girls who read it and might take an interest in sports, but maybe I think the bigger message for me is just kids are often told repeatedly, oh, you can't draw, oh, you can't do math, you're not good at this or that. And so the message in this book really is that you can, you don't give up, just keep at it and find out if you can.
I saw an interview that Sue did recently where she was just talking about the importance of her being featured in things like in commercials or, where she's kind of been parody with male athletes, and that it's just important to have more books like this on the shelf, because eventually it's not about like, is it for boys or girls, but just that the expectation would be that both male and female athletes are included and becomes more normalized. That's just not unusual anymore.
I think a big part of that too is starting to not, and my editor, or our editor, we had that conversation of referring to her in especially the back matter of the book as, a prominent female athlete versus a prominent athlete. Simply. Right. So.
Yeah. And speaking of like the wording of things and your editing and writing, did you come up with this title, and is there anything you want to tell us about what you were thinking about?
Yeah, I really love titles of books. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I've been lucky so far that my editors have kept the titles that I've proposed for the books. But this one, it's kind of a double pun, because knowing that Sue's team was obviously named The Storm, I started thinking about metaphors and connections. And the first one that came was, the eye of the storm. And while it's true that she is absolutely sharp-eyed and unbelievable in tracking plays on the court, after learning more about her, I really understood that it wasn't simply her physical talents that made her such a huge asset. It was a big part of it, of what people really admire about her, is her heart. And, the section that I read, her collegiate experience in Connecticut was really transformative in showing her that she really needed to sort of step up and be a leader. And that was, I think, where it happened, that she realized she was the heart, the center of the team as the point guard, but also just who she was. And what I think is so wonderful is just to see now that she's using like her prominence as an athlete to promote issues that she cares about. especially supporting, LGBTQ communities on and off the court, and working for pay equity for women athletes, which is ongoing. But that's inspiring, so I'm happy that we've kept the title.
Yeah. I think I got a feedback on some of the early covers that it was too stormy. It was sort of darker.
Yeah. Oh, we actually did need to check that it was okay with Seattle Storm that we used.
Yeah.
Storm.
Yeah.
That it wasn't like a copyright kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So Ellen, I think it's your turn. You've illustrated so many books, so many great books and children's books, and including other biographies of athletes. And I'm wondering if there's a difference when you do fiction or nonfiction, both in process and how you think about it, but also the challenges of something like a biography where you have, again, a living person that you need to illustrate when they were a kid or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very different. Each book has been really its own set of challenges. And, almost always the characters are at the center of where I start with developing my approach to a book. I always know that the characters really have to be thought through. When you're doing biography, I think the first book I did was a biography. And then one of the most recent ones, one that's coming out in May, is a biography of astronomer Mariah Mitchell. So she's kind of, in some ways, she was the easiest to depict, and I could be very collage-like with her. She was, it's a very different style. Mm-hmm. Because she's there's only I don't know, a dozen pictures of Mariah Mitchell. So you sort of feel like you can be a little bit freer. With Sue Bird, there's Sue's Instagram, this, YouTube interview. There's a million, she's so photographed and is constantly more and more. Right. And so it was kind of overwhelming, and you sort of feel like you feel like a obligation to the person to be as accurate as possible. So I think I tend to over research, and I also find doing the likenesses of people challenging. And so for The Heart of the Storm, there were you're doing, what's that first spread is a whole bunch of players, and you're trying to kind of make it sort of resemble the different players, and actually
because it's a real event. Sure.
Who was there and who was on each team during this game, approximately where they were. I was watching videos of it over and over again. And anyway, I had to say this book was one of my bigger challenges. But I learned a lot doing the first book, which was called Her Fearless Run, which I have over here. And it's a biography of Catherine Switzer, mm-hmm. who was the first runner, woman who ran with race numbers in the Boston Marathon, even though she did it before women were supposed to be registering for the marathon. But since there was no women, there was no checkbox that said, are you a woman or a man? So she just registered and got a number and ran and finished the marathon. But this book was all about, I was so lucky that this was my first book, because it was, every time I kind of felt overwhelmed by the scale of what I was doing, I could go back to the message of the book, which is really all about one foot in front of the other. You just keep going, start with the step and just take the next step and just take the next step. So anyway, I always go back to that. And it's similar with The Heart of the Storm, it's those messages of persevering and keeping on, trying, and when you're discouraged. And I always think of athletes playing through, Sue now is like, she's like constantly in pain and gritting it out like every day. And so, you start to think about that, like, okay, maybe I can keep going.
What was the time frame from when you first started sketches to finished art?
Oh, I should check that, but it was kind of long, and it got extended because at one point the publishing date got pushed out, which was good because I was finding it like a lot to get through. But I don't know, must have been like a year and a half, or
That's what I was gonna guess.
yeah, something like that. It's kind of like most of the books have been like, say I got, about a year to do, sort of from the time I really start working on it, like to do the sketches and the revisions and then get the final art done. And then there's usually about a year from when I'm finished to when the book comes out.
Right.
So from when you started it, I mean, it must have been.
It does seem long. It
was a long time.
I mean, if you write a novel, it doesn't take that long. Once it's illustrated, you have to give those illustrators time.
Yes.
But that makes me, think about the process of your art. Your illustrations look very layered to me. And I looked at some of your other books, and a lot of them are collage, but then you can see the line quality that looks like, I can't tell if it's traditional or digital or if it's a mix. And I think that's really interesting for non-artists to hear about how you do your art. So we talk about that.
Well, we're a little prepared for this question, Gabby. If you can bring the slides up, I did prepare some slides for this. So we didn't have to just, you didn't have to visualize it all. The first slide is just a few of the textures that I did use for the Heart of the Storm. And I usually start out when I'm getting ready to do the finished art, like I'm always trying to figure out the feeling, and that's kind of an intuitive process. So I know I wanted to be some paint, brushwork qualities to try and be able to capture a little bit of movement, but without, I didn't want things to be too static. And so anyway, I usually develop kind of a library of textures that for each project, and they're always a bit different. So that's part of what contributes to like the variety of the style.
So are we looking at, is this watercolor or what are we looking at?
There's charcoal. There's like a wash. I think that's not watercolor. I think it's watered down gouache. Then there's a less watered down gouache, and then there's like a pencil acrylic combo. So they're just a few of them, and they're kind of layered in. So oftentimes I'm like cutting out an area, and sometimes I'm layering things on top of each other. So we can advance to the next slide. I'll go through a little bit of the process. This is just a very early sketch. So I just kind of selected one page that we can kind of look at as I went through. So the first slide is this is just a digital sketch. It's probably not the very, very first thumbnail version, but it's a sort of a rougher sketch. And then the next one is this would have been the sketch that we go through a stage where we do black and white sketch at full size. And so it's more detailed so that it gives everyone a good idea of what's in that picture, where the space is, if it's an image that has text over it, all of those details. So it's pretty well worked out. And one of the challenges I find is trying to make sure your finished art isn't just static, because you've already figured out all these things, and that's just kind of an ongoing challenge I'm always trying to figure out the answer to. So those are just from an earlier step. So then the next ones are some of the layers I did for the final artwork. So for this book, I did a little bit differently in that I did sort of like underpaintings for most of the spreads. And so this would have been just like a page from the sketchbook I was working in, where I do gouache, which, if people don't know, gouache is it's like a watercolor paint, but it is more opaque. So you add water to it and you can thin it out and apply it in different degrees of opaqueness. And it's just, I don't know, I just like using it. So I would do like an underpainting layer like this and try and take in the whole scene, as you know, for the most part. And then if we advance to another one, Abby, what I would do is, I'm showing you these separately, but what I would do is bring that painting in and scan it, and then I would work over it in Photoshop, because that's what I've been using, a digital drawing program. And I do detail work in Photoshop because I just find it a lot easier, especially when you're working on likenesses of people. I just really find it hard to just get it right and do it, by hand. I like to be able to edit it, especially when it comes to facial expressions and just getting the right feeling of, faces and having, it also makes it, when you get feedback on your artwork and as it all circulates through to the publisher and you, that it makes it possible for me to edit the artwork later. So that's just this.
You're keeping the color as like separate from this at this point.
Well, I'd actually have been doing the line over the color, but I'm showing it as it's, if I separate that out, this is what this is what the line work would be like, look like. But in reality, when I'm working on it, I've got the color layer on my screen and I'm working in, if for people who aren't familiar with like digital tools, they allow you to kind of put, I know you know this, Sharon, because Sharon and I are both graphic designers, but it allows you to set up separate layers that you can edit and work on separately without changing any of the other ones. So I could take my original scan, put it in there, and then I can create another layer in which I do the line work. And then if we go to the next one, I also did, like, just by hand. This is again me working by hand. I did a charcoal texture and value layer. And then I would again scan that and bring that in, and then that gets more merged with the layers in a more, you don't really see it as much, but it adds texture and it darkens certain areas. And again, that's using like the digital layers that you can change the way they affect one another, to put it kind of simplified way. I don't know, do I have another one? And then next one might just be the final version of that. Yeah. So when you put it all together, and that's more or less how it comes out. So I think we're gonna go, let's see how we're doing on time. I think we're just gonna switch modes a little bit, and we're gonna do your fun facts, aren't we?
Yeah, I had put together some fun facts about Sue.
Fun facts about Sue. This is just where we get to be like Sue fangirls.
So Abby,
and hopefully that's because we hope that the people who are watching this are into Sue Bird.
Yeah, there, Abby, there should be one other PDF of that one. Okay.
Next.
So these are kind of these were sort of my fun facts, but they're also things that Sue talks about having to answer the same questions, like with lots of all these like numbers of interviews that she's ever done. So starting in the upper left there, her second favorite sport, and she was quite good at it, was soccer. And up until she was probably in middle school, she was on highly ranked teams that, made it to nationals. And she needed to choose at that point between basketball and soccer. And she chose basketball, but she says that, she could have maybe received a soccer scholarship if she had stuck with it. And I think it's interesting now that her fiance, Megan Rapinoe, is a champion soccer player. She's always chosen the number 10 when she can for her uniforms, ever since she was even just a young kid. I think she even has a 10 on her soccer uniform there. She was born in October. Her sister, who she's really, really close with, Jen, and who was a huge role model for her growing up, was also born in October. So if she can't pick 10, she sometimes tries to get multiples of 10. In the upper right there, is she related to Larry Bird? No. She says that's like probably the most common question she's ever asked. She says sometimes she says yes, sometimes she'll say, yeah, he's my step uncle, just to see if anybody will really check. And then the last one is she's broken her nose 5 times, and same number as her Olympic gold medals, 5.
Hey. I was, one thing I felt like we didn't really totally address in the book was face masks, Sue. the protective mask. I was supposed to
know it's 5 times.
I technically should have put that into some of the illustrations, but I just was like, how is it even gonna? You can't even see her face. But so with the last few minutes, going to do another sort of facts about Sue, my version, which is me and Sue. What do we have in common? So the next one, it's another slide. Sorry, Abby. We have slides for this too. Should be just go on to the next thing. Anyway, the first thing, and it's actually, oh, sorry, this is the first one. This was the spread from the book about Sue and her big sister, Jen. And just like Sue, I had a lot of big brothers and sisters, and I wanted to do everything that they could do. I was the little sister, and always wished I could keep up with everyone else. So that's number one, me and Sue. Next one.
This one was easy to draw.
Both of us, like Sharon as well, Sue and me both grew up on the East Coast and moved out west. And this is Lily the dog here demonstrating our current location in British Columbia on the lower right. Let's see, next one up is, this is suspenseful for me. Oh yeah, Sue, like we were talking about, she's a champion. She's a Olympic medalist. And just like Sue, well, we actually, the thing we have in common is that we both like to wear sneakers. Not that we're champions and medalists. And then in the next slide was really the big homage to Sue's footwear, where I tried to find like the footwear from her whole life and put it into. This is an alternate colorway of the end papers that didn't get used.
Which she continues to keep collecting. She has a huge sneaker collection.
And I think the Kyrie.
Oh yeah,
Nikes just came out with another Sue Bird edition.
Right. Keep Sue fresh.
Keep Sue fresh. Hashtag. All right, next one. Oh yeah, we both went to a school where we had to wear uniforms. This is from a scene from Sue's high school, Christ the King in Queens, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, next one. Oh, right. We both played basketball in college, but if you go to the next one, this is a comparison of, oh, this is, sorry, I missed one. This is when Sue visualizes the game, and this is when I visualize the game. I think I played for about 1 minute in one game, and I had no idea what was going on. So this is kind of where it's like, this is more about what we don't have in common than it is about what we do have in common. And I think, is that the end, Abby?
I think so, yeah.
Oh yeah, all right. Now we're on to questions.
All righty. So just a reminder for everyone, if you have questions for Ellen and Sharon, you can pop them in the Q&A feature. It's located at the bottom of your screen. It's funny, I was going to ask a question about fun facts, but you had a whole slide about it. So,
there are more.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you want to share, Ellen, the other thing I was going to ask too is you mentioned like looking through a lot of references, obviously, because you were drawing her. So if there was like a particularly memorable photograph, but yeah, fun images, fun facts.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. I can't really think about which ones.
She is like a lot of athletes, she's superstitious. I mean, in a way that gets you prepared for like a routine. I mean, we all do that, right? But so she actually has curly hair, which you would never know because
the college, yeah, you could see that in the college pictures. She just
really like slicks it back and always wears it in a ponytail. Has to be 2 ponytail bands. They have to be the same color. She ties her, shoelaces for sneakers a certain way. Just lots of routines that people do to sort of just get them. I mean, and I think they know it. They know that this is not helping them win, but it's just helping them stay grounded and get into a routine.
Sure. So. And then there's always that question in the back of your head of like, what if I don't do this? Yes. So just to be safe.
Right. Why not?
Sorry, Ellen.
No, just saying, yeah, you think, why not do the superstition?
Yeah.
Be on the safe side, right?
We have a few questions coming in. Someone wants to know, how many storm games have you been to? I guess either of you, both of you.
I really hope to. Well, Sharon thinks about that. When I first got this book, I was like, oh, I'm going to go see the storm. And then it was like pandemic times,
Oh, yeah.
And they moved out of their arena because the arena was being renovated for 2 years. So they were playing at the University of Washington arena for a long time. Let's just say that I can count the number of games. So it isn't infinite, it isn't like the people who have the season tickets and they're just like diehard fans. But dozens. So
nice.
I don't know. Have you at all? Ellen, have you been?
No, but maybe now that Sue's playing another year, Sharon, maybe I can get down to Seattle. We'll try and go see a game.
Yeah.
I feel like VIP, right? I mean, the book should get you, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
We'll carry the book in.
We'll just have like we'll just be selling them in the back, somewhere.
Yes.
Secret merch table. Yeah.
That actually ties into another question here. Has Sue Bird seen the book?
I don't know if we know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I think we know that she probably has seen the book. It's an interesting process when you're writing about a living person, a well-known living person, because I don't know the process if it were an estate of someone, but in this case, if they're a well-known person, you don't need their permission to write about it.
Okay.
But there is, at least with our publisher, there's just a process that we go through. So we let them know when the manuscript is actually final. It was sent to, the publishing house sent it to, her representative and made contact with people in her her circle. And generally what happens is they'll just comment on, well, thank you for sending it to us. We'll be in touch, or send us an advance copy or something like that. So we hope, not yet, we don't know if she has, responded, but it would be great to, we could do an event.
Oh, yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
Art Julia could host it.
If you're out there, right?
Hopefully people are excited about having a kid's book written about them.
Oh, I mean, I personally would be quite flattered. I don't know how much my opinion matters. Especially with Ellen illustrating, which this question ties in. How do you decide which moments to illustrate? I was wondering about that too.
That's interesting. Yeah, because in some books, it's really like kind of clear what you're going to pair with the text. Sometimes the text is really open-ended. And I think this one, it was probably a little bit in the middle, because it was, each page is telling a specific part of her story. But within that, I think there was still quite a bit of decision room, because you could, oftentimes the text would cover quite a bit of ground. So you kind of have a chance to decide. Basically, a lot of, doing the research, that was something I did spend a lot of time on, and doing a lot of sketching. So, and then just a lot of little thumbnail sketches. That's really one of the first stages of the whole process of illustration, is just doing very small, quick sketches and trying to put that into a page order with the text of a book, and sort of see how, even at a small scale, it kind of gives everybody a sense of how the pictures and the text are telling the story together. So it's a lot of iteration, trying it again and again, trying to just feel like you're telling the story. And then you have an individual page or spread from the book, and you want to make that work well. But you also want to think of it as a whole as well. And, think about what you're showing from scene to scene, that you're not repeating too much, that you're varying the perspectives, you're varying the supporting characters, and how much you focus on Sue. And you want, like, if there's an important character, you want to make sure that they're included, in a few different places, and just all, just as how you want to, you got to step back and then think, well, what are the feelings and the themes of this whole book? And have I brought those out in the artwork? So it's just a lot of editing,
so
change, and getting feedback as well. Yeah.
This one's cool. Well, first of all, we have a comment. I would hope the book would be sold in the team shop. So I just wanted to read that out. I think that's a great idea.
It's in negotiation with the team shop.
This person also says Yukon would love copies of this book. So just throwing that out there too.
Oh, all right.
We have another viewer who'd like to know, is the manuscript completely done when you start the illustration process? I'm always curious about how that works.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not always. Do you want to say anything about that before I launch?
My memory of it is that people are usually surprised by how many revisions even a children's book has. So we probably had, 8 to 10 revisions. So I would say as it got towards, like, if 10 is the final, I think around 8, it probably is passed to the illustrator. But that the art director might have had that even earlier. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when a publisher contacts me at first just to ask if I can do a book, then I'll get a version of the manuscript, and that oftentimes that does change between when I'm first contacted and then when I really start to work on the book, because often there's a bit of lead time where they're making sure they have an illustrator under contract for the book, and there might not need to actually get going on it right away. So usually when it's really time for me to start sketching, often I'll get an updated version of the manuscript. And I know that for this, we did go through edits most of the times when it would go through a review process, like say when there's thumbnail sketches, and then when there's those full page sketches, it'll go through a review process. And there's often were some edits, but not necessarily major.
I mean, it goes through a fact checking phase after the manuscript has been approved, which is probably halfway through my process. And that's when, I have to send them like my 20 pages of footnotes and reference material, and it needs to be double and triple checked. And there were maybe a couple of things like that would change, but they would be things like the numbers of points or something, it wouldn't affect, I think, the illustration.
Yeah.
So.
Did y'all's writing and drawing process change as a result of the pandemic?
Well, like one of the changes was, for me, I'd worked on a couple of books during the pandemic, and I do normally, if I can, like to do more in-person sketching for things. And it's like, I really would have loved to make a trip to Seattle, gone to a game. I mean, probably most of you want to take a trip to Seattle, but it's not too far from me here normally, but we weren't able to go across the border for a long time easily. And, it would have been great to go to a game. It would have been great to just kind of walk around Seattle and be able to do there are some scenes of Seattle in the book, and it would have been nice to be able to sketch from life. I did have to replace some of the life drawing that I like to do with online research. So that's a bit of it, that affected a few books that I worked on where, I didn't really get to do as much in going to places and seeing people in person and that kind of thing. I don't know if it affected you at all, Sharon.
No, I got more work done. Probably.
I know.
I think I'm feeling it more with, bookstores are still not having a lot of in-person events. I mean, there's some, but not a lot. And school visits are still virtual. So, so during the pandemic for my earlier books, nothing happened for, for that during 2 years. And I think that was the case for a lot of authors whose books might have come out in, 2019, 2020.
Well, I'm glad we got to do this one.
Yeah, we were too.
Super happy about it. And then this is actually a good one to wrap us up, I think. What is next for both of you? I think that we heard something about another book, right, Ellen? You held it up.
Coming out this year.
That one is beautiful. That's coming out in May.
Right,
Ellen?
that one's done.
Yeah, that one's really beautiful. Looks really
This one's coming out in May. That's the Mariah Mitchell biography. There's another one called A Park Connects Us. This came out same month as the Sue Bird book came out. And then I'm working on a book which is like very kind of the opposite of doing like a sports biography. It's just all animals. So there's like, you don't have to make it look like a specific person, or, it's like, if it's a walrus, it doesn't have to be like a world famous walrus that everyone would recognize. It's just like, it's just a walrus. So, so it's really fun it just feels like really, fun and creative to be able to do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Sharon?
I am working on a manuscript for another middle grade novel, but that is still in process. But I have a children's book biography of Dale Chihuly, who is a glass artist.
Oh, really?
In Seattle. It's in the middle process. It's coming out like in 2024.
That is super cool.
Yeah,
wow.
It's taking longer because the illustrator, we want to actually be able to show some of his art. So it was a negotiation process with like his foundation to be able to work out the deal. So, but it will be really, really beautiful. So.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm so excited now. Those all sound great.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. This was such a dynamic and
you.
fascinating
Thank you
conversation.
for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Abby.
No problem.
And everybody for coming.
Yeah, we have to plug
the virtual
one more
people
time.
there.
Don't forget to purchase The Heart of the Storm. There are links there for you in the chat box if you don't already have your copy. And of course, RJ Julia does have special signed book plates, so get your order in ASAP if you'd like one of those. And yeah, I hope everyone has a lovely night. Any last words, you two?
No, thanks so much. And maybe Sharon, maybe you and I will actually meet in person one of these days.
Yes, I think we're trying to, Ellen and I have talked about doing some fall events in Seattle that you could come down for, whether they would be bookstores or maybe a school visit or something.
And I'm hoping to get out to RJ Julia in person sometime soon too.
I was going to say, Connecticut is waiting whenever you two are ready. We'll be right here. You know?
Yeah, oh great. That'll
Thank
be
you
great.
so much.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Have a great night, everyone.